The Spinoff Podcast Network.
K-pop to me means more than just listening to music. It's learning to be myself.
The Spinoff's new documentary, K-Pollies, follows 3 Pacific youth obsessed with K-pop. In a one-off documentary, see what they've found in Korean pop culture and how they bridge it with their own.
When you start dressing, looking different, everyone side-eyes you. But in K-pop, they're just like, no, like celebrate yourself.
Watch K-Pollies today at thespinoff.co.nz/videos. Made with the support of New Zealand On Air. You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is brought to you by Spark Lab, offering inspiration and practical advice to help businesses find their edge. To hear more about Spark Lab, including details about the latest events, workshops, and business tools, visit sparklab.co.nz. And now, here's your host, Simon Pound.
You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is made by The Spinoff with help from Callaghan Innovation. Here's your host, Simon Pound.
Social media is the venue where so much of business now happens. It used to be people went shopping by visiting a bunch of stores. Now, people are always shopping on their Instagram, even when they don't know it. It used to be you'd find out about a company and make your mind up about them or head in to complain at their stores. Now, it's all happening on Facebook pages and through passive-aggressive tweets. But being good at social media might not have been what got people into business. The world moves fast. How do businesses keep up? And do you now need to be on TikTok? One company that's been at the front of helping small and large businesses succeed on social is Socialites. Around 2 years ago, they were joined by a new co-CEO, Melanie Spencer, who came from a career of helping businesses communicate and grow. To talk her journey, the social media landscape, and the business, and whether you do need a Snapchat, Melanie Spencer joins us now. Tēnā koe, thank you for being here.
Kia ora. Hello.
Hey, so first up, tell us about your career heading into the co-CEO role at Socialites, being kind of both at the pointy end of communications in the agency world and then running places as well. So tell me about agency life.
Okay, so agency life, I started agency life many, many years ago, probably over 20 years ago in Sydney. I studied in France, got a first-class honours in international business, landed in London, thought I was pretty cool stuff, wanting to get into marketing and nobody would touch me. And I was like, hang on a minute, but I've got a first-class honours. Surely you could give me a chance. And I ended up working in banks, of all things, on trading floors. And finance is not my strong point. And but it was so good for me, and I absolutely loved the buzz of it. Moved from London to Sydney, and I got introduced to a lady called Sophie Lander, who had a boutique agency called Lander Communications. I didn't even know what PR was at that time. I went in for the interview and I got the job. And that was my sort of first introduction into agency life. The funny thing is Sophie was such a renegade. Back then, I remember clients saying, hey, can you report on this? And Sophie would say, look, do you want us to do the work and get you PR, or do you want us to give us reports how things have changed? And we used to, and now I look back on it, we used to work in big property PR deals and also influencer marketing. We used to look after famous chefs like Matt Moran. We used to have Delta Goodrem come to big events, big property events. And now that I look back on it, it's like, hang on a minute, that's actually the start of influencer marketing. And that's where I really grew to love storytelling. Everyone sort of said, if you need a difficult story to sell into the media, give it to Mel. And I think it was, finding that hook and really immersing myself in what the target audience want to hear. So that was my first start in agency life. I actually worked for Sophie for about 7 or 8 years. And then we moved back to New Zealand, and I worked for a couple of agencies here and started really sort of dabbling in social media. But I actually, looking back, started social back when it really first started about 12 years ago, but looked after Haraway Oats, did social media for ASB, started Trilogy, #NoFilter. And so agency life has always been in my blood, and I've absolutely loved it, but there's always been a love-hate relationship with it, I've got to say.
Yeah, what's the love-hate relationship? Because having done a little bit of time in some agencies, like the adrenaline and the pace and the, late night and the deadlines and the clients needing this now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that kind of makes it at once quite energizing and exhausting.
You're absolutely right. Agency life is addictive, and you get addicted to that buzz and the adrenaline and the fizz and everyone collaborating and workshopping and riffing ideas. At the same time, burnout is a real thing. At the same time, back in the day, agency life could be full of egos, could be full of, people who thought they were better than others. And I've always been on the crusade of really building up respect and trust and people's confidence within agency, because I've seen people burn out, and I've seen so many people say, there is no way I'm ever going back to agency.
Yeah, and I mean, agencies today aren't necessarily like they were, but there was such a badge of honour for kind of, working 20-hour days, or, I worked at a ad agency that had a breakfast bar and then a bar, and after a while I worked out that it was probably only there so they could break up some families, and so people would be at work longer.
I'm sure a lot of families have broken up because of agency life, but it's changed now. And what is really, really cool is, what I say to my team is, when you have an agency, I'm building you up to, have a team and respect a team and build up a team and motivate a team like we're humans, right? And we've got this amazing, group of people who just think differently, which is a beautiful thing. And what is also really cool is seeing all these women CEOs come in just really in the past few months with these big agencies. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, the culture 20 years ago in agencies versus today, where, there are all these kind of hero kind of men figures who were, if you look at it on paper, terrible people to be in charge of anything. Famous for drinking for 19 hours or, coming up with the pitch on the way to the meeting or whatever it might be. And and then they're leading these big organizations. And yeah, the world's changed. It seems to have got a little bit more professional and less power imbalancey, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think the respect between the client and the agency there is there as well. And I think that has shifted, where it's agencies are there for a purpose. We're there to, see the wood for the trees. We're there to really, really help these businesses and these brands thrive. And that's why we love what we do. And I always, Wendy and I, we are there ultimately to build a brand's, ultimately there to build a business, not just our business, but our clients' businesses.
And so you came out of working for some pretty big PR agencies in New Zealand and went into managing smaller businesses that were still creating experiences for customers and still working in communications, but into management. What took you out of account management and PR into management?
Yeah, great question. Actually, Spaceworks is an interior commercial design business. They were actually my client, and Lizzie sort of followed me from one agency to another, and she said, "Hey Mel, how about it? Come and work for me." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, client side, how exciting!" And I spent 3 years at Spaceworks, and I absolutely loved it. And that was my first real taste of growing a business and managing a business. Lizzie Whaley, she's been in the industry for 20 or so years, and working alongside her, but me not being a designer, was actually fantastic because I could speak the language of the client. So these designers are so bloomin' talented. But sometimes the translation between their work to the client wouldn't quite get through. But I could sort of demystify that language to the client, which is a form of marketing, I guess. And I became general manager pretty quickly, and we grew from 7 team members, I think, to about 28 team members when I had left. So I was like, this is what I love doing. I love business. I love growing business, and I love growing teams. So that was my first sort of experience on the business side of things. And then I got the bug again, the agency bug, and got tapped on the shoulder by Strategy Creative, which is another agency. And Jeff Cranko sort of asked me to help set up an Auckland office in in Auckland. And that was almost starting from scratch, so completely different. And wow, for 2 years, we went hell for leather and grew this little agency pretty quickly. So you can sort of see that I love the marketing side, but the business side and the growth side is what really gets me going. But the problem was this was a branding agency, but I kept selling in social media. And I was like, hang on, there's something not quite right here. So I did that for a couple of years, but content and storytelling is just in my blood. And that's where I was like, hang on a minute. I need to get back into what I love, but also have the opportunity to grow a business as well. And I've known Wendy for a couple of years, and we started talking, and that's how it all began.
So Wendy Thompson, who is the existing CEO at Socialites. Tell me about coming into a co-CEO role and what's involved with that.
Yeah, look, Wendy... she's founder and CEO, and we dated. We call it dating for a while, actually for a long time, because essentially coming in as a co-owner and a co-CEO, you're essentially, well, you kind of are married. We call each other our work wives, and we even say, look, you are the one, which is kind of cool. And Wendy and I really balance each other out. Wendy has exceptional focus, and her and I, we have the same values, we have the same vision, but that was not something that we designed. It was more of a It was just a beautiful thing that happened, and we just worked out. Actually, Wendy, you focus on one or two things, and she will absolutely go for it. Whereas I'm sort of the person on the ground. I probably get bored easily, and I go between the team building, the clients, the marketing, the HR, the everything, and just get everything humming. So co-CEOing is when it's right, it's great. Wendy and I are always on the phone with each other. We're riffing, we're spitballing, we're workshopping out situations. And especially during a time of, say, COVID, there is no way I could have done what I did and probably vice versa without each other, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Tell me first a bit about, how big is the business at Socialites and what kind of work are you doing there before we perhaps jump into COVID?
Yeah, so when I started the business, I think we had about 11 team members. We're up to 25 now, and we've grown substantially over the past couple of years. We have different business units. We have our enterprise team. We have our community management team who shift work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week, 364 days a year, keeping all that banter and conversation going. We have the social club, but I guess we'll get to that. So that's our influence and marketing arm. We have our APAC team, or head of China team, and we have our media team as well. And since COVID, one of Wendy's special projects was growing the SMB market, or arm, sorry. So we've got different teams, but they all cross over and work beautifully together.
Cool. And then so you're kind of on the front line on behalf of really big businesses. So, some of the bigger businesses in the country, hey, you're Sparks and the like, is that right?
Yeah, Spark was a few years ago, but we work for Microsoft, The Warehouse, Mitre 10, New World, Generate, you name it, every industry under the sun and every sort of Kiwi and also international business. But yeah, we definitely represent their communities for sure.
And so you've got the people, there to catch people complaining or trying to jump the queue for help or doing whatever they do in a public way. And then also helping kind of smaller businesses with their online strategy and to grow. And quite a few of those programs are, they're kind of productized, aren't they? You've got kind of courses and things that small businesses can do to get better at social.
Yeah, we do. I think whichever, it doesn't matter the size of the business. Our job and what we are very, very good at is building a brand community online for commercial success. And just going back to the bigger businesses, for New World, when we took over, they were having 450 conversations a month online or on social. It's very dormant. During COVID, we got up to nearly 40,000 conversations a month, from 450 to 40,000. And brand sentiment, because we had taken care of that community, brand sentiment during a tough time such as COVID, we say that we won COVID, but we won COVID because we had nurtured the community prior to this big event. During COVID, SMBs and the tourism industry were really, really battling. And so many businesses just didn't know what to do. The government were great and had poured investment into agencies such as ours to digitise these small businesses. And what we found is, Wendy and I would be talking to these small businesses, and we've built a team around it as well. But, you feel like you're actually helping them. You're doing some good. And we do. We've got products where We can do strategies for them. We can have one-on-one training courses with them, which they absolutely love. And we've got the most amazing team running these courses. Or we've got a program where they can just pick up the phone a couple of times a month and go, hey, I don't know what to do next. Can you help me with Ads Manager? Can you help us with our content moving forward? So, and it's all very structured for them, so it's easy for them.
And we'll be back shortly to hear more about how small business owners can build their businesses online with Melanie Spencer of Socialites.
Kia ora. If it's your dream to come and work at the Spinoff or our sister company Daylight Creative, then listen up. The Spinoff is on the hunt for our next editor of The Bulletin, our flagship morning newsletter. We want someone who's a proud news freak, someone who knows how to sift through the headlines and pluck out the most essential stories of the day and then explain them to a time-poor audience. If this sounds like you, get your application in before July the 25th. If you're passionate about creating meaningful, impactful work that makes a difference, then you'll want to be part of the Daylight Creative crew. We're after 2 new members to join our client service team. We're looking for a full-time account manager and a contract account director to look after our amazing client base. Applications for these 2 roles close on August the 2nd. Go to thespinoff.co.nz/spinoff jobs for more information or to apply.
Yeah, and that work that the government did to help small businesses get sorted online, like the tourism industry is such a great example of something that has just kind of relied on people turning up and then selling through really traditional channels, brochures at the iSite and link ups with tour guides and stuff. Tell me about kind of helping these businesses get a presence online and build communities to help their business.
Yeah, you're 100% right. You'd be really, really surprised how they really relied on traditional methods to get their business thriving. So it's really starting from the beginning with a lot of them. It's really starting from this is your brand. This is your audience. This is how we can target that audience. And of course, they went from a lot of those tourism businesses went from attracting international people to New Zealanders. So their whole business model changed. So we helped them really work out, why an Aucklander would visit and spend money with them, or why someone would travel from Taupo to Auckland to come to, some sort of, bungee jump or the like. So it really was not only helping them with their social media, but it's really helping them with their business strategy as well. And we've seen we have been getting incredible feedback, because I think ultimately we're a soft place to land and holding their hand throughout the process. And I call it giving them their social media wings, so it's like just giving them a nest, and then when they're ready to fly, they go fly. So.
Yeah, and it's such a funny thing, especially for small businesses, where maybe people don't feel like, maybe they feel like talking about themselves online is self-promotion, or maybe they feel uncomfortable putting themselves out there and saying how great their service is even, or they just don't want to put their head above the parapet, How do you help these businesses?
It's such a
talk about themselves.
It's such a Kiwi thing, yeah. And to be fair, I can understand. Yeah. I can really, truly understand. But I always say you don't have to be arrogant with it. You've got to be proud, and especially. After last year, everyone wants to help each other, and we've got to have a sense of pride. And if we're not out there, if we're not having that two-way conversation with our target audience, then you're just not going to be seen. And that's the thing. Social media usage has just absolutely gone through the roof since last year. It's just, it's where people go to be informed, inspired, entertained. If you're not on it, you're really going to be lost. So, it's just giving them the confidence and the know-how. And I think that's why they do come to us. It's like, okay, here are your content pillars. This is what you need to talk about. And then they're like, okay, I can go and do it now.
And in terms of the way of getting the story out there, you mentioned earlier on the absolute primacy of magazines and people who are the gatekeepers of those, at the beginning of your career. And now kind of the magazines are the influencers. They're people who have similar reach to a lot of the magazines that you might have. But it's been such an evolving space in terms of kind of how that all works. Tell me about how you as a team bought the Social Club in order to have influencers as a real key part of what you do.
Yeah, so we always did influencers, and I think the funny thing is there's a lot of agencies that do influence marketing. When we COVID started sort of rolling in, Wendy and I I remember we looked at each other and went, I wonder if there is something we could possibly buy during this time. Anyway, the opportunity came up with the Social Club, and we've known Georgia for a long time. She's an absolute force. She's the founder of the Social Club. And it came up, and we were like, okay, hang on a minute, COVID's just hit. This is a scary time. Is buying a business really the right thing to do? But Wendy and I, we were like, let's look at it really seriously. And we were like, this is an absolute no-brainer. The Social Club are, the best in New Zealand. 12,500 influencers on the database, a team of absolute experts. It's not a talent agency, talent agnostic. So, their ideation of how to bring a brand to life using influencers is like, it's closing the loop with our service at Socialites. So we did all our due diligence over Zoom, over chips and beer over Zoom, and we just made the leap, and it was absolutely one of the best decisions we've ever made.
And how have you, along the journey, upskilled in your role? As I know that you've worked with the Ice House, and how do you keep, as a business grows and as your role grows, how do you keep growing?
Really good question. Something that Wendy and I talk about a lot is investing in ourselves and our growth and our education. And Wendy's a massive believer in it. So I did do the owner-manager course at the Ice House, which was absolutely incredible. A big supporter of the Ice House. They feel like a real family of mine now, a real business family. So we're constantly putting ourselves on courses, mentors. I've got the most amazing mentor, Sheridan Broadbent, who is an absolute force. And I'm now looking at my next course that I can do next year. So I'm just constantly reading. I'm probably reading 5 books at a time, but also just looking at where I can learn and grow with these different courses, and like the Ice House is an absolute no-brainer.
And there's a new stage coming on now. Hey, tell me about what's happening next in the company and with you.
Yeah, so look, Wendy and I are always planning, and we're always planning our growth and our next move, and always exciting times, which is great. But I always say to my kids and also the team, expect the unexpected in life. And I very unexpectedly became pregnant at the beginning of the year, which was quite scary for someone who is a co-owner and a co-CEO. So Wendy, when I told Wendy, I cried, and I thought my life was over. And I'm being really honest at the moment, because it's a thing that I want to share because I know other people would go through. And, Wendy and I decided as partners that, we are going to make this work. And we've got 22 females in our team. And what better way to lead the crusade for our team, but also for wider New Zealand, to be a older mum, a more mature mum, and also a mother of 3 as well. So I'll be a mother of 4, and co-CEOing and co-owner of a business. So, it is about the support. It is about respecting females who want to keep working and keep going and making it easier for them to do so.
Yeah, and the fact that it is such, that you said then that you felt like your life might be over. Like, I wonder how many senior male managers who have a child, when they're 20 years into their career, I wonder if that's a moment of them wondering, whether people are going to think they can do their job or, whether there's room for them to be doing that and doing their job. It feels to me like it's kind of like a sign of something that really needs to be pushed past.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing, because you're absolutely right. I don't think a male would think that their life or their career is over. Maybe I was being dramatic, but that's how I felt at the time. And I was talking to my mentor, Sheridan, and she's like, Mel, you need to share the story because if you felt it, then just imagine what your team would feel as well. And we have another team member who's actually 3 weeks ahead of me. But, you need to lead the way in this because if you're feeling it, then other women in New Zealand will be feeling it as well.
Yeah, and if there's that pressure on women, is that perhaps, in your opinion, could that be a contributor to the fact that so few women are in the leadership roles of things like the NZX50, where there's 1 or 2 women leading these organisations?
Yeah, I think, the social pressure is still there, 100%. And there is a thing called pregnancy prejudice. And I've looked into it and I've studied it, and it is still there. So, we have made massive headway. We've got Jacinda who's leading the country and had a baby. We listed, Wendy listed all the CEO women with, lots of children. We've got Sheryl Sandberg as well. And I straight away read her book, Lean In. So we're doing it. But there's still sort of an undercurrent that is making it more difficult. And I think it's also that sort of subconsciousness of the pull between the family and the work as well. But that's why you need a really supportive partner.
Yeah, and like after a year where everyone's kind of seen everyone's families and spare rooms and like how people's blend of life and stuff goes. Yeah, what things will you be putting into place, or are you thinking of putting into place to mean that it is something that can be just taken in stride and, as normal perhaps as any male leader having a child at any stage of their career?
Yeah, so we are thinking about putting sort of a soundproof room in for nanny and baby, a fridge dedicated to milk, baby's milk. So little things like that where, team members who have young babies can feel comfortable bringing their babies in, but also looking at more flexible working as well. So we're just sort of finalising what that's going to look like. We are going to trip up, I'm sure we are, but that's where hopefully I can be the guinea pig and we can try things out, see what works.
Yeah, awesome. And as a kind of final thought, what will success be for you personally, and what will success be for Socialites?
I heard a few months ago that success is actually not about your independent success, but succession and succession of your team members. I get nothing, nothing more than what I love most, nothing more, is seeing my team thrive and really succeed. These young go-getters are just incredible. If I had half of what they have at their age, I'd be a gazillionaire. So success for me is really seeing the team and obviously the business thrive, and so that's success for me. Success for the business, we are focusing on several different things. Social commerce will be an area that we're going to really start focusing in on. That's the sort of the new wave of where influencers selling direct on social media is going to be absolutely massive. It's huge in China and the wave is coming our way. We already have a person in Melbourne, so whether that means Australia and beyond, we are working on campaigns across 18 different nations in the globe, but whether that means we actually have people across the globe as well. Absolutely the best social media agency across Australia, New Zealand and beyond. And I think we're almost there, but it's a case of always moving and being agile.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story today. It's Melanie Spencer, the co-CEO at Socialites. Kia ora.
Thanks, Simon.
Thank you very much to Te Aihe Butler for producing, and thank you very much for having us along and listening. Cheers.
You've been listening to Business is Boring, presented by Simon Pound. Brought to you by the Spinoff and Callaghan Innovation.
From the Spinoff Podcast Network, that was Business is Boring, brought to you by SparkLab. Make sure you're following Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information on SparkLab, visit sparklab.co.nz. Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tāmaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today. The Spinoff Podcast Network.